Ukraine's not the good guys. If Ukraine was the good guys, we would have left Mariupol.
Aiden, would just like to confirm that you're speaking of your own will. There's not going to be any pressure or anything like that. You are fed, watered. Basically, you agree to.
Yeah, I agreed to this. I asked for this.
So this is of your own will.
Yeah, I'd say lucky, to say the least. Probably extremely lucky to be alive, considering the situation that happened in Mariupol.
I mean, really, basically, if you look at the, I don't know if you've seen the videos, I know you've been quite active online, but can you describe any of the videos you've seen of when Russian soldiers have been taken captive by Ukrainian soldiers and what's happened to them?
From the videos I've seen online of Russian soldiers being captured, Ukrainian soldiers haven't adhered to the Geneva Conventions.
Right.
There's been a lot of war crimes that have taken place, like from what I've seen. A lot of it's down to the Nazi groups like Azov Battalion and Right Sector, and a lot of nationalists as well, from what I can see.
So you understand, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. We're talking about absolute barbarism. We're talking about videos of Russian soldiers, servicemen killed by stabbing them in the eyes, tortured, mutilated, slaughtered.
Yeah.
By your colleagues, your comrades, Aiden. I mean, come on.
I don't promote this. Like, if I ever saw anyone doing anything like that, I'd try to intervene, because first and foremost, like, just because it's the enemy, they shouldn't be treated any less than once they drop their rifle, and then that's them finished. And I think the people that do these crimes, they should be punished to the fullest extent. Which, with the Ukrainian military, I doubt they're going to even care about it.
I mean, we're talking about, I would say there's no words to describe people like that, but we're talking about Ukrainian soldiers. I'm going to use a few choice words to describe them. Animals, yeah. Scumbags, barbarians. Your comrades, Aiden. What are we talking about here? How has this ended up that you're on that side?
I made a stupid choice. I easily misread the information and joined the wrong side.
I mean, you're a 28-year-old man from Nottingham. You came over. Can you give a little background as to how you came to join the Ukrainian forces? I believe, was it the 36th Marine?
Yeah, 1st Battalion, 36th Marine Brigade.
Mm-hmm. How you came to join them, when, and what motivated you to do that?
So I first came to Ukraine back in February 2018.
Uh-huh.
Previously, before that, I was in Syria, in Kurdistan, with the Kurds, and I had met someone who was previously in Ukraine, and before this point, I was pro-Russian, pro-Donbass. I'd been following accounts such as yourself since the very beginning. And then when I was in Syria, I had met this acquaintance who was also in Ukraine. Had a few political debates with him, and eventually, he managed to tell me about information and then show me stuff. And then obviously a lot of it was misleading information, so I was easily misled.
You've been serving for years in the Ukrainian army.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you're socially aware in terms of social media and all the rest of it. So in that time, you must have surely done some research, looked on Google, checked out the Azov Battalion, for example.
Yeah. You
must have seen the signs that they wear, the wolf's angle. You must have worked out that these guys are Nazis.
Previously, we had never really worked closely with Azov, up until we came to Mariupol. When a day in Mariupol was just the amount of destruction, and it was one of the videos I saw of one of the other journalists that was in Mariupol, where Azov were driving down the street, using civilian buildings for cover, while there's active fighting going on. It was then I started to change my opinion. I've always thought they were like far right, but I tried to convince myself maybe it will change for the better. But especially after the base was taken, and like the amount of like Nazi paraphernalia that was like found there, like it's blatantly obvious like they're just Nazis. Basically my duty was to prepare the mortars and then give them to the firer so they can fire it. So that's what I've been doing for the past 6 months.
So for the past 6 months you've been preparing artillery, which has then been fired.
Yeah.
And where has that been fired?
This was in the village of Pavlopol, like where we were stationed. So we were firing it at like enemy positions.
And you say enemy positions, Aiden, you say enemy positions, but we're now in the city of Donetsk, where for the last 8 years Ukrainian forces have been shelling not enemy positions, but civilians.
Yeah.
Killing thousands of civilians, children, for 8 years. So you're telling me that you think that you were shelling military positions, and yet for 8 years your colleagues have been openly, and in fact glorifying and celebrating in shelling, in killing, and inflicting untold misery and suffering on the people of Donetsk.
Yeah. As I said before, because we were mostly stationed in the south, like I never really knew what the reality of like the situation was up here. We were mostly based around the Pavlopol area.
Yet here you are in captivity for a week. You look absolutely okay to me,
yeah,
in decent health.
Firstly, like for people that say I'm a hero, I'm not a hero. I try to desert. That's not something a hero would do. Secondly, like my treatment's been good. Like I've not been beaten or anything. It's been better than what I actually thought it was going to be. Like when we were surrendering, I was scared to death of like what might happen. I thought I was going to be lined up and shot, but it's been quite the opposite. Like we've been given food, water, access to speaking to journalists. I had asked previously to speak to Western journalists, and they went through with that and brought journalists. They brought Italian journalists, Graham today.
So let's break it down, Aiden. In the United Kingdom, in the British media, it's categorically delineated down the lines of the Ukrainians are the good guys, the Russians are the bad guys. Tell me, from one who now has experience of both sides, what's the reality?
Ukraine's not the good guys. If Ukraine was the good guys, we would have left Mariupol. Our commanders would have told us to leave Donbass. Azov's influence in Mariupol was massive, like in terms of like military support that they received from the state. It was actually during this operation we actually got to see how much support they got. I saw brand new American armoured Humvees that had obviously been given to Azov instead of like the regular military.
And who were these guys? Describe them to me. These the Azov.
The ones I had seen when they came by. We had a few instances where they came by with the commander to speak to our commander. They looked the typical like hooligan, like sort of like build, tattoos everywhere. There was a couple of Croatians with them, and they didn't seem like they were the normal kind of like nationalists. They seemed more far right because they had like patches with swastikas. I tried speaking to one and he just like laughed at me because I was in the Marines.
So what would you like to say, not only to the UK but to those from around the world thinking of coming, or rather going to Ukraine, because here we're in Donbass, this is not Ukraine, this is the Donetsk People's Republic. What would you say to those thinking of going to Ukraine to take up arms on the Ukrainian side?
Don't do it, you'll be used. Obviously, to the person that will be viewing this thinking about going, like you'll be thinking like it's someone putting this into my mouth. But I tell you like now, like 100%, like if you go, you're an idiot. Like myself, like we were used, we were easily tossed aside when forgotten about. I'd never really been to the Donetsk like region front lines before, but at the moment we're here in Donetsk, and like in my cell I can hear the bombing, and that's like a big like wake up call for me, because previously before you see on the news like there's some fight, there's like fights taking place in Donetsk. You never see like the bombing from Ukrainian media.
How is the morale among Ukrainian soldiers?
During the operation, once we pulled back to Mariupol, for the majority of this operation I spent in a bunker at battalion HQ because as I said I refused to fight. But from what I saw from the guys in there, a lot of guys were ignorant of the situation, and their morale was like normal. It wasn't till the last week when the airstrikes started getting heavier on our position, which was in the metallist factory. That's when they started realizing that the Ukrainian government's like left us. I said to them like ages ago that they've left us, like this, like I don't know what you expect for this to go. So like it wasn't until the last moments that the Ukrainians started feeling their morale like go. Everyone started becoming silent and realizing that they're going to lose, which I said to them was going to be from the beginning. Look at Mariupol before, and then look at it now. Like if we had left Donbass, like Mariupol would still be a city. Right now it's graves, like especially from other like journalists who were following DNR on Russian forces. I saw them giving interviews to civilians who were inside Mariupol, talking about how the Ukrainian military and Azov were like using like the cover of like civilian occupied buildings to fire from with their tanks and whatnot.